Okay, we're making progress. We're down to the part in the instructions that discuss change your text styling. So as I mentioned before, first of all, let's go back and look at the example CSS that Google has given us and just remind ourselves if this gets fixed, that's great. But right now, Google has a problem that it's not giving us a complete font stack. It's not giving us this, in this case, it would be Laura, comma, serif, and down here, Open Sans, comma, sans serif. It's missing the system fonts. So if I come to here, it happens that my body font is Open Sans, and which is a sans serif. So the first correction I have to make is to that. So this is what I have to change my font family declaration to be. It's very important that we get both the spelling and the capitalization of these family names correct. We can run into a situation where we might not actually get the font if we're not careful with doing that. So I'm going to be careful. I'm going to type in Open Sans, and then that's a sans serif. I could actually save that with a command or Control S. Don't know. Yes. So right at the moment, I've only got a body text and it's Open Sans, and all of my text on this is Open Sans at this point. I'm back to not loading an italic font. So the browser is not using an italic. It's just trying to slant those letters and make a faux italic. But I want to use the other font for these titles. So the instructions say that right below this body declaration, I'm going to add this display font declaration. You'll notice the commas here because this is a list. It's all the H1s and Fig caption. So let me see if I can copy all of it. There we go. I'm going to copy the code, come into here. I always leave an empty line between declarations, and then I'm going to do a paste. And I get to stop here because my display font is Laura. You would have to do a similar thing. You could copy this in, but then you would have to change this font stack to represent your fonts. And that includes getting these, whether it's a serif or a sans serif, in there correctly. But that works for me. So again, Command or Control S, come back into Live Server, and now I have that Laura display font for my titles. I think we're doing well with the instructions. Let's keep going. Now we're talking about the fact that we have no italic. So the instructions say that we're going to change that to the bold font weight for whatever we're loading as the display font. Okay, so in my case, my display font is Laura. It's the one that has the 700 weight to it. So I'm going to go down and find .ima. There it is. Sort of show these side by side. Your colors are going to be different, but we should see max width, a color, a font size. Now over here, we have to remove font style italic. And with me, I can just copy and paste. And I'll right click out here, format with prettier. Just align those guys up. So whatever I did up here, let me scroll back up. This font family declaration gets repeated in the IMA along with declaring the font weight to be 700. Again, we can save that. Let me actually, going to quickly right click, reveal in Finder. So this one is not live server. It's going to stay whatever it is right now. And this one, the one to the right of that, is live server. And actually what I want to see is the difference in this italics. Okay, so ready to save. Do that with my keyboard shortcut. That's what it looks slanted. And now we have a bold font on that. And yes, it's smaller than this. You may decide that visually you would like it larger. If you can do that without breaking your code, you're more than welcome to now start playing with the styling of this. And some students are finding that this doesn't quite look as nice as it could, and I will suggest some additional styling you can do with this area here. Your article may be changing the line height. Let's make sure that we're getting through the instructions. So now we've changed this .ima class to use a bolded font. And actually, we're at a good place. Let me go into live server and show you what you can do. Right click, find inspect. Make this bigger. That's not bad. And if we take the cursor up here, move my windows down a little bit, and click on that, and then actually it shows on the first paragraph here, I can come up and click on the div. If you remember, the styling for this was done inside the div, because then each one of these child paragraphs inherited, not inherited, they're inside that div. And so the width of these lines are now constrained by the size of that div. And you can actually, the orange stuff, when I hover over the word div, shows that margin. So here we are down with the declaration. We have a max width of 35 rims. And this margin is what is centering that div on the page. So let's click right there to create a new rule. And I'm going to type line height. And the default for line height, there's always a default for any of these things that can be styled. It's 1.2 rem. So I can start there, 1.2 rem. I don't think, yeah, it did change. But that's fine. Let's click it back on. And if I click on that value, it gets highlighted and I can use my up and down arrow keys. But actually, I kind of like that. Sometimes changing the value by 1 is too much. So if I hold down the Alt or the Option key and play with the arrows, that's not bad. I can either decrease or increase that value at 0.1 for every time I click or hit the up or down arrow keys. So that's really actually adding quite a bit to the readability of this page. Let me turn it off. There we go. I find that much more readable. I can, let's see if I can copy a line here. Open yet another tab. Go to wordcounter.net. Wordcounter.net. Paste that in. And right now I'm at 76 characters. So it's still a little bit, it's not too bad for me. But I can click on 35 rems and again use my arrow keys to bring it down ever so slightly. Copy a new line. Go back into Word Counter. So 74 characters. It shows up 74 again. I don't know. Maybe it was that. There we go, 71. So something like that is starting to look much more readable. Both with increasing the line height and maybe decreasing the max width on that div. Let me unclick that. Where'd it go? It's all the way down at the bottom now. So this is that rule we have at the end of styles.css. We can do one of two things. We can just remember these changes, or we can actually just carefully copy this. Where am I? Yeah, copy all of this, come back into VS Code, and just replace the old one. Paste that in. Go back to format document with prettier just to get the nice indentation. So as I've mentioned in class, I'm sort of now allowing students to little by little start making your own design decisions about things that are in your page. And this is a good one I think I've done here. I just feel it's a little bit more readable, especially on a big screen. And go back into inspect and just, you'll notice that as, you know, when it's pretty narrow, it's still looking pretty good and readable. Whoops. And then as we expand it out, it stops expanding at a certain point and stays put. Okay, let's go back. I could have been, let me save this. I could have been doing commits and pushes. I've made quite a few changes. Make sure that these are all saved. But now I can go into Git and say, you know, add article to new fonts and style. New styles. Probably would have been better to do some commit and push, but that's okay too. Hit the check mark on that, do the push. Come back into project 5, refresh. There we are, 18 seconds ago. Come down into the README font pair suggestion from Figma. Right click, open new tab. It very nicely goes to Figma. Make sure you get this right for full credit. Somewhere here is my Netlify. I can refresh that. So we can see that the font's changed. It's no longer italic here. The article is here. So copy that, open yet another tab, do HTML validator, find the W3C, paste that in, check it. Good. Like to see those. CSS validator in a new tab. Find the one that I call Jigsaw. Paste that one in. Do a check. Congratulations, no errors. So that's it. We actually jumped right into the finish up. We verified the changes are in GitHub. We're also seeing the changes in Netlify using the correct name. The HTML passes validation, the CSS passes validation. And it looks kind of like the example. So hopefully that's it. Contact me if you have any problems, but that is a completed project 5.